right, hey everyone, welcome to Floating City Podcast. I'm here with Rami, and I'm interviewing him. This is a podcast where I interview people that I find very inspiring that are doing amazing things with entrepreneurialism or some artistic craft or some mix of both. And I think he's definitely doing that, so I got him to sit down with me today to do a little interview. How's it going, Rami?
Good, thank you.
Doing good. So, Rami or Rami?
Rami, it's
Rami.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, Rami. All right, man. So how are you doing this morning?
Doing well,
Doing
can't
good.
complain. Busy.
Busy, sweet. Yeah. We were just talking about the entrepreneurial life, being a serial entrepreneur and having no time, but everything being super spontaneous.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's kind of how you're being today.
Yeah, I think that's how entrepreneurship is in general. It's have to definitely plan things, but at the same time, and the way that business moves these days with technological acceleration, with the implementation of digital media, you really have to be reactive. You have to be able to respond to situations as they come up. And I think that's just how business is these days. It's become very fast paced.
Yes, totally.
And the implementation of technology, automation, streamlining, customer relation management systems, integrated booking systems. I'm a real nerd when it comes to that stuff.
Dude, this is all in your head. It's like not even 10 o'clock in the morning yet.
Yeah, it's. I think that's one of the things that I stumbled on as I was learning this, and I'm not sure exactly when it all started, but I started getting involved in systems and automations, coding, programming, applying technology really towards helping businesses streamline, automate, be efficient, be less dependent on labor, all the things that, Moore's law, right? It's all a matter of optimizing and streamlining and making sure that you can create models that kind of move forward on their own. And so I worked a lot of different industries and got a chance to apply technology in different ways. And over the last 10, 15 years, between my wife and I, we founded Alter Experiences, and that business has really been a convergence of all of that, everything we learned in terms of the application of social media, especially as it relates to the travel industry. I've applied social media techniques to various different industries, real estate, what have you, wholesale, retail. I found that the social media is very travel centric. It's something that the return I've seen on our campaigns in the travel and tourism industry just blow it out of the water. And compared to, for instance, real estate, people go out and travel, they want to show off where they're at, and then their friends see it, and then they want to, and it just becomes perpetual. And we really built Alter Experiences on a shoestring budget. We moved up here 3 years ago, my wife Chantel and I. We bought a property, and we spent all of our money just on that property, working on getting the house built. And so I was working full time. I'm still working for full time down the hill. I was commuting, which is something that, if you are a person trying to come up here and make this transition over, it is important. I found it important to maintain my job down the hill. Just, it gets quite expensive living up here. Things come up, snow, it's living so far from, down from stores and that kind of thing. So things really need to be planned out. But basically, so we bought our property and we were very big on ecotourism, sustainable tourism. Travel is something that we really love and have been involved in many, many years now. And so we wanted to find a way to build a business here, and we were lucky enough to partner up with the U.S. Forest Service, who allowed us to establish our glamping business on their land. And, glamping is the big key word, and it's, the kind of entry level concept into what we're doing. But really what we're doing is more about responsible travel, experience travel, nature immersion, forest bathing. And throughout our many years in the tourism industry, you've got a lot of these different sectors. Ecotourism is probably the one that's most well known. and it's one of the fastest growing subsectors in the tourism industry, very popular all over the world. And for me, that was something that really appealed to me because sustainable business is something that I'm really passionate about. I'd say like the 4 or 5 things I'm most passionate about is nature, sustainable business, travel, nature immersion, and wildlife. I just learned this over the last 3 4 years. I didn't always know this. I can't live in a city. I can't deal with noises. I can't deal with everything that we have, which is like that manifestation of that industrial age. And I never understood what that was about. I've recently been reading the book Last Child in the Woods by Robert Duvall. I don't know if you've heard about that
Never
book.
heard of that.
And that book was basically everything I always knew, just played out to me.
Okay.
And I'm still reading through it. We've been actually listening it on an audiobook on our trips down to Baja over the last couple weeks, and that has
Nice.
also been amazing to me because nature has always called me. Moving up to this mountain, something was calling me up here. With my ventures in Baja right now, something's been calling me out there. And 7 8 years ago, 14 years ago, when we moved out to the Red Sea, and something was calling me out there, and I start to feel that I'm really attracted to places with a lot of biodiversity. There's certain places on this planet that are just so rich in biodiversity and wildlife, and resources.
Yes.
We went down to Baja, just all the way down to Bahia de Los Angeles a couple weeks ago. We took the drive from here all the way down there. We stopped in the middle in San Felipe because it's about a 6 8 hour drive altogether. And the thing that Chantel and I were blown away was how many species we saw just in one day.
Whoa, plants and animals?
Plants, animals, so much biodiversity. And a lot of it was desert, and it was still so much biodiversity that you could see, and culminating with, swimming with whale sharks at Bahia de Los Angeles, which for me was something happens to me when I'm in nature. I think I live a pretty fast-paced life because of everything that I'm doing, and I think I do have kind of a chaotic personality for many different reasons.
Yeah.
When I'm in nature, all of that goes away. I can, realize my own insignificance. I can see my place in it all. I can reflect on the beauty around me, and it basically just takes me out of myself, I'd say.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. That's why I laughed. It's like I feel very much like my personality is very chaotic, and really nature, amazing mountainous, dramatic views, kind of brings you back to your center, which I really resonate with. So for a little bit of context for listeners, Rami and his wife have a couple of different projects that they're working up. We both live here in Julian, California. We live up in the mountains. Like you said, very biodiverse, super amazing nature and everything around here. It's very healing for people that are into living in a natural setting like that. And and has a business called Alter Experiences, where he mentioned before with the glamping, where it's glamorous camping. It's all your sites are in Mount Laguna, right?
We have sites in Mount Laguna right now, 6 sites, and it's a project in collaboration with U.S. Forest Service, Cleveland National Forest, the Descanso Ranger District Office.
Okay. Yep. And so we live in, just for a little bit of context for people that didn't get it, and then we met through Regulars Wanted at the cafe that I work at. And then connected on Facebook to get this interview down. And man, I'm enjoying what I'm hearing so far. So how long have you been living here in Julian for?
We're coming on our 4th year living up here.
4th year, wow. I've been living here for a year and a half. It's really nice up here. I did not expect to stay. I got a job at a yoga retreat place with Stu. Stu, yeah. So I lived there for a bit and then moved to Regulars Wanted. And man, the nature here is, when I was living there, I was surprised because I thought, Southern California is just going to be mostly desert. I didn't really know of this area, but I took the job on, do you know workaway.org?
Yeah.
Took the job from workaway.org. He actually reached out to me. And that was the first thing I noticed was the biodiversity. There was cranes in the little pond that he had. And, sometimes during the year there would be a little creek and everything. So yeah, amazing nature up here and everything. And how long and when do you start Alter Experiences?
We started Alter Experiences. We had been setting the foundation for it before we moved up in 2016, but it's been an evolving project, and it's changed a lot to finally get to where it's at right now. But we have now been in operation for 3 years with the Cleveland National Forest. We've hosted hundreds of people. We've had a great run. We've discovered a lot about the growing outdoor hospitality scene. We've gathered a lot of data about the demographics of these visitors that are coming up, some of which are first-time campers, people who, like you said, people who had lived in San Diego their whole lives and had never ventured out up here, not even knowing that this was here. I still remember the first day I had a person in front of me that had said to me, like, this was my first time camping. I was blown away by that. And I started to realize then, slowly we learned as the business grew and developed. I have spent more time in the outdoors and in nature camping than I have in a city throughout my life. So it was kind of crazy to me to meet somebody who had the opposite situation.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that. And it didn't stop there.
Yeah.
We still have guests that are coming up and they're saying like, hey, this is our first experience camping, nature immersion. And that's very exciting to me. And I think especially, with adults and kids, you think about creating, again, we come to nature to disconnect, to unwind, to unplug, to, get back to Mother Earth, get back to, that agricultural tradition and ancestry that we all share. The Industrial Revolution is an experiment over the last 100, 200 years. It's fairly new. And for everything that it's created and everything that we are as a country and have created as a result of the Industrial Revolution, I think that came at a huge cost, not just to the environment, not just to our resources, but to our own psyches.
Yes, I was going to say consciousness too, the way it affected us.
Conscious-wise, just so many different aspects, psychologically, the way it's affected us. And, you were talking about it earlier, this fast-paced lifestyle that we're living and that is accelerated by the use of technology. It's taken its toll on me. I feel like it takes its toll on me every day. I do my best to manage it. I do my best to disconnect. But I think even creative energy takes its toll on you. And that's something that I've also learned. And I think this acceleration is not that natural. If you look at, nature and the Fibonacci series and sacred geometry, if you believe into that kind of stuff, it's organic growth, it's step by step, it's a certain sequence. All of that is just kind of out the door now. We're living very fast-paced, unnatural lives, and a lot can be accomplished in that space, and I'm living proof of that. As I said, Alter Experiences we built from the ground up. I mean, after we had moved up, bought our property, did everything that we did, we had a couple $100 in our account, and from that, we built that business, and we are now the only glamping operation permitted under the U.S. Forest Service in all of California.
Whoa, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. And yeah, I think nature immersion is so important for people nowadays, especially, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have never camped, never experienced it. I don't know of anyone personally, but I'm definitely sure that, we are born in a super sterile hospital, bright fluorescent lights, the first thing we do when we get out, when we're birthed, and then we're moving into apartment buildings our whole lives. Most of us only eat like 12 vegetables in our lifetime from, the grocery store variety is super small. So it's like we are so disconnected from nature, not just through food, which is like kind of my focus, but it just literally being in the presence of nature, we're all so disconnected from it, and I think it does take a toll. People's mental health. They have nature therapy is super important, and I definitely do different versions of it. But I'm definitely interested in glamping at some point on having an alter experience.
Well, you've got nature therapy and you've got also nature deficiency. And that's something I would encourage all of the listeners out there to read that book, Last Child in the Woods.
Last Child in the Woods. Yeah.
That book really outlined to me, and I haven't even finished it yet, I'm still going through it, but it really crystallized in my mind what is going on here, and something really serious is going on. And nature deprivation is something that is real. And I'm a firm believer that, a lot of what we're dealing with as a society, health wise, whether it's psychological, whether it's physical, a lot of that has to do with nature deficiency. And again, when we're talking about, nature, we're also talking about living kind of, an organic lifestyle. I know I've heard on some of your other podcasts, moving away from sugars and, highly processed foods. So it's a lifestyle. It's something that I think also overlaps with minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that, talking again about the industrial age and that consumer culture of materialism and single-use plastic, I think we're coming to the end of that age, and people, embracing. When we moved up here, my wife and I also embraced a minimalist lifestyle. We downsized. We were really on a journey. We wanted to start a family. We wanted to, set a foundation somewhere. I was born and raised here in San Diego. We both lived here most of my life. I've done a lot of traveling. I've lived in other places, but, this is my hometown.
Yeah, yeah.
So we decided that, we've been married together now 14 years.
Whoa, yeah. Over a decade. And you're how old now?
I just turned 37.
37. So you guys got married, you were 25?
I was 25, yeah.
Shit, dang. Long time.
Yeah, we've been together a really long time, and she has really been a huge inspiration on me. And I'd say in terms of matriarchy, that's another thing that I'm very fascinated with. If you don't want to anthropomorphize things here, but Mother Earth to me is kind of that living entity, Gaia, and I feel like it's very much a feminine force. And so I'm fascinated by the matriarchy, feminism. I've always believed that they actually are the true power.
Damn.
As much as men like to act like they are.
Totally. Yeah. Wow, man, that's really amazing. And you've been living. You said you lived in Egypt?
I did. Yeah, that's where my dad's from.
Okay.
So.
Do you know Arabic?
I do. Yeah.
Nice. Fluent?
As fluent as you can get. Arabic is a very, very complex language. I speak Spanish too.
Yeah.
It was easier for me to learn. I still struggle with Arabic, but it's a very rich language. I feel like it's a language that, English and Spanish are languages that you kind of speak at the tip of your tongue.
Yep.
Arabic, kind of like German, is kind of words like that come like deep.
Yeah.
From your stomach.
Wow, yeah. I've never learned I know Portuguese, a little bit of Spanish, and English.
Yeah.
So you all look right here. Dang. Wow.
And I've seen also a lot of people that do speak Arabic. It's very easy for them to learn English and Spanish versus the other way. And I've always thought that's why it is. It's a complex language.
And how long were you in Egypt for?
We lived in Egypt for about 7-8 years. It was
from
Chantel and I, from 2006 till about 2016 or 17. And we were working in the tourism industry. I have family out there that works in tourism in places like Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada and Marsa Alam, all along the Red Sea. I had the opportunity to go out there and check it out for a couple months, and we immediately became fascinated with it. We got into diving and that was just opened up a whole world for us in terms of marine biology. We got the chance to do a lot of underwater filming and to dive and interact with sharks, dolphins, mantas.
Yeah, I saw some of the footage on Facebook. And I was like, what the? And were you filming that?
Uh, which footage was that?
I don't. Well, it was all the underwater stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we probably did, but we also share a lot of other work from other places.
Okay, and well, I mean, you. When it comes to you and Chantel, do you film? You guys both film?
We do both film.
Nice.
She is the cinematographer though.
Nice,
Yeah,
very
she's
cool.
the drone pilot too.
Ah.
So I do a lot of the editing. I'm kind of like the nerd. She's more the creative person. I never consider myself a very creative person.
Oh, you're more analytical.
I'm more analytical. She's more the creative.
Very cool. You guys balance each other out
Yeah,
very
we
well.
balance each other out. We tag team on a lot of these projects, but the drone footage, she's the pilot.
Nice.
And, yeah, a lot of the footage that we share on Discover Julian is work that she's filmed, and that's just been a labor of love. And that goes into the work we've done with the San Diego Backcountry Visitors Bureau. That was a project that we inherited from Zora Martinez. She's not in Julian anymore, but she founded the San Diego Backcountry Visitors Bureau. It has evolved a lot over the years and since I've taken it over. But really our emphasis is responsible travel, sustainable business, and visitor outreach.
Love it, man. Love it. And do you have any future projects that you're working on? I know the answer to this, but I don't know if you're willing to share it or not.
Yeah, we're expanding into Baja.
International.
Yeah, that's something that if all goes as planned, that should be happening by the end of this year. We're acquiring a property down there. I'm really excited about it. And again, for me, I love creating spaces and experiences in very diverse destinations and places where you can come and experience nature and walk away from that and it be an experience you'll never forget. And I mean, I just had that down in Bahia de Los Angeles, interacting with whale sharks. That was just a moment and an experience that I love interacting with wildlife, especially marine wildlife. If you've ever interacted with dolphins.
Never. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. That's amazing.
These animals are alive and they're conscious and more than we give them credit for. And if you have studied a little bit about what's going on, there's another place that Chantel and I spent a lot of time in. It was the San Ignacio Lagoon down in Mexico as well. And this is a place where whales come on their yearly migration and they actually stay there and they nest there and they feed there. They look for these warmer sheltered lagoons. They seek for protection, for feeding. One of the individuals, the tour guides that we met there, told us the story that for many, many years, the whales would not interact with people because of the fishing that was going on and because of the hunting that was going on. And that's just a whole nother story we could get into. You start thinking about the story of Moby Dick and that whole kind of culture that was created. You think about Jaws and the kind of Hollywood. I feel like there is this real battle against nature and it plays itself out in many, many different ways. You look at every horror movie you've ever seen is always in the forest somewhere up in nature, and I used to not pay so much attention to it, but now I really am because it's a
Cabin in the Woods.
Think of every scary movie you've seen.
Yeah,
it's
and
without
The Hills
a
Have
doubt,
Eyes.
It's always in the forest and the woods and the mountains. And again, I that's something that slowly you start to see the pattern. There is this real attack on nature that manifests itself in so many different ways. And again, that book I'm talking, Last Child in the Woods, talks a lot about that.
Yeah.
And again, that's stuff that I sort of inherently knew, but to see somebody outline it just so scientifically with the data, with the analysis, to me was mind-blowing. And again, I recommend you guys all to read that. We got completely sidetracked. We were talking about God, what was it?
Alter experiences. No, it's all right. I mean, this conversation is going to go everywhere, so it's all right.
I think we had been talking about the experiences in Baja, and
Yep.
that nature, the need for wildlife interactions. Oh yeah, the San Ignacio Lagoon, where we went and interacted with these whales. So the guide that was with us had told us that the experience we were having now to interact that closely with them, and we were having these whales just coming right up to the boat, looking you in the eye. I mean, you could put your hand down on them and touch them, and I know they felt it and they wanted to feel it and they loved that interaction. And there was actually a man in that village that was credited with being the first person to win their trust again. So that slowly we have these experiences where we can interact with them, but that wasn't always the case.
You think they had some resentment against humanity?
They had some resentment, and they understood the exploitation that was going on, and they slowly started. They were not interacting. You couldn't see them like you see them now, and the way you can interact with them now. And God, I wish I could remember that. And I had the names all down. You know, there's a book out there about it. But this is kind of one of the stories that I've experienced. You know, if you watch the movie The Cove by Rick O'Berry, he was the former dolphin trainer who basically was the person who was a big inspiration behind the dolphinarium industry. He had that show with Skipper the Dolphin, very famous dolphin trainer.
I'm sure people will recognize that. I didn't grow up watching too much television, so I don't really know a lot of the references.
That's another documentary I'd recommend you to watch. It's called The Cove, Rick O'Berry, and he basically spent most of his life building up the dolphinarium industry, only to, towards the end of his life, vocally stand up against it and regret everything he did. Basically saying that dolphins should not be contained like that. So, you know, cetaceans, especially dolphins, they swim for miles. It's part of, you know, what makes them what they are. And then you think about echolocation and how they're so dependent on that. You think about putting them in these dolphinariums, people clapping, you know, beats and sound. You imagine like SeaWorld, that must be torture to them. And if you see, there was another video, God, what was it? Black something. It was a big one on Netflix. Blackfish, yes.
I saw some of that.
There was a lot of controversy behind that, and I think, you know, I watched it. It was intense, but if you start to see the pattern, you do start to realize that, you know, these animals do not belong in captivity. They cannot be kept in captivity, and it's a huge shame that, you know, we're profiteering off of their suffering. And I think if you look at, to a large extent, the zoo industry does that a lot all over the world. I'd say here, like for instance, the national park we have, the wildlife, San Diego Safari Zoo, they do a really good job. I think SeaWorld does a pretty good job too. I think they took a lot of heat over that Blackfish documentary. And I thought that was so interesting again. And this was a young documentary filmmaker, was able to just cobble up all of this video and this narrative, which was a very compelling narrative, and to disrupt SeaWorld like they did. And I think that's so indicative of internet culture, of our generation, and, you know, what can be accomplished and the kind of possibilities when you have these platforms at your disposal. And that's another thing I'm really excited about, again, is not just the application of technology towards business and business acceleration, but also towards cultural change.
Yes.
That's something I'm fascinated with.
Me too. I'm very on board with you on that. And so these, like the wildlife interaction, is this something that will be available when you glamp in
Most
Mexico?
certainly, yeah. This experience is going to be total nature immersion.
Nice.
And I think, you know, we've established a mountain operation, which is something that we're very proud of. And, you know, this business was a labor of love, and it really took so much out of both Chantel and I to build. And to see it now pay off like it has, and to watch it grow like it has, to me, in just a short 2-3 years since we moved up here on a shoestring budget, that's so exciting to me. And now we're in a position where we can expand. And for us, it was just a natural extension to our company to find something along the coast. And I mean, obviously, you know, for us, the Pacific side, I love San Diego. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, but living in the Red Sea and having traveled to some of these other bodies of water and seen them, it's just a totally different experience. I
Right.
personally like warm water. I like to be immersed. I love snorkeling.
Yeah.
I've surfed here and there. It's not something I'm that into.
Yeah.
I'm more into diving. I'm more into snorkeling. I'm more into like underwater activities. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that we want to definitely expand on. We're going to be doing snorkeling. We're going to be doing diving activities.
Dang, I've never done any of that, but that sounds amazing. It's something I will definitely be into.
I mean, if you love what you see here in the mountain and to experience nature immersion in terms of forest bathing, underwater is something you're in it. Like
Yeah.
it's embracing you.
Yes, totally. That's amazing. I love how it's like two totally opposites almost.
Yeah.
Like mountaintop snow, forest, pine trees, and then like sea level, underwater immersion, beach.
We were, our staff and I were talking about that just yesterday. We're headed down again next week to Baja, and we had 3-4 inches of snow up in Mount Laguna, and
Yeah.
a week from now we're going to be down sea level,
It's amazing.
80-degree temperature. I mean, it's the biodiversity that we have here in San Diego, and by extension, Cia Cortez is a diamond.
Yeah.
God, every time I go down there, it just is pulling me back more. It's such a diverse and changing landscape. You've got drop-offs, you've got islands, you've got reef, you've got pelagic species. I mean, it's just from the drive from here, from Julian specifically, Sunrise Highway, that's the road to get there. So you're going through Sunrise Highway, down into the valley through the Cleveland National Forest, all the way out to Mexicali and El Centro, which is another awesome place, not in terms of tourism, but I love what's happening down there. I think it's a very strong economic base for Southern California.
Nice.
And I also love the whole cross-border culture and also cross-border tourism. So you shoot on through there right into Mexicali, and then from Mexicali down to San Felipe is about 2 hours, and it's just a beautiful drive. A lot of things you can see along the way, and then San Felipe, where the Sea of Cortez really starts, is an experience in itself. And then you just keep going down to Bahia San Luis de Gonzaga, Bahia de Los Angeles, Mulegé, La Paz, and it just gets prettier and prettier as you go down.
Dang, and this is all along the coast?
That's all along the coast, and what's really exciting is President AMLO, if you're familiar with Mexico, he has been one of the greatest leaders Mexico has had in as far back as we can remember. He has done so much for the country, for the economy, to support tourism growth, and that's evident if you've ever taken that road down to San Felipe. He finished it all the way through. It's a project that's been in the works for a long time, but basically they've taken a very open approach towards economic growth, towards tourism development, towards cross-border tours. And that's one of the reasons why I've been watching this trend for a long time, and it's one of the reasons why we're so eager to get down there and get out there first, because I assure you, over the next 4 or 5 years, demand for those kind of cross-border tours, places like San Felipe, is going to explode. The kind of experiences and interactions and landscape and geography that we have down there, you don't really see here in San Diego. There's similarities, of course, but Cia Cortez is nothing like the Pacific Ocean in terms of underwater activities, in terms of the warmth, in terms of the water clarity for diving, for snorkeling.
Whoa, man, you're making me want to go.
We're going next week, man, if you want to join us.
Nice. Wow, man. So, and I can, from just talking to you and the way you're explaining it, the business side is cool, but what you're really about is the nature.
Exactly, and obviously we had to package it in a lot of different ways, but it's a complex concept, and as I said, it encompasses a lot of different things. One of them, again, when we talk about sustainable business, we talk about minimal impact concept. Our sites all can be taken down. We're not disrupting anything really. We're setting up tents. We're creating these experiences. we're expanding on the potential occupancy of the destination without building, without, disrupting nature, without a lot of the traditional things you would need to establish the kind of experience that we have now. And that was also a long journey, just trying to getting or understanding that and the business side of it all. I think definitely when we first started, we were a bit naive about how specifically the county of San Diego was going to react to what we were doing. They have their building codes, it has to be a certain way, tents aren't fire rated. It was very, Chantel and I would walk out of that office like basically we were going to need $250,000 investment to buy a campground and apply for the major use permit. You might or might not get it.
Whoa.
And just to set up a small glamping business. And I think that was the first wake up call, like, all right, it was just, we have to start thinking outside of the box in terms of how we're going to do this. We knocked on a lot of doors. The next option for us was to look for somebody to partner up with. And, we knocked on the door of the state park, Cuyamaca Rancho State Park, and they gave us a lot of runaround. They were open to it at first, and then, they were just like, no, we're not interested. We tried with some of the local preserves. We reached out to BLM. We knocked on every door that we could, trying to explain to them, this niche and this model that we were trying to introduce into the area was relatively new, and we felt that as a model, it could help attract a different demographic, so, and we had data. There is a lot of data out there. We're not, the pioneers of ecotourism or anything. There's plenty of research out there about the potential of this industry, about the demographics, about, the people that, ecotourists, what we found and what we learned are people that are not, they're willing to spend a little bit more to make sure that their money is going towards a sustainable business, that their money is going towards responsible travel. That was another thing that I learned through this journey working in the travel industry. We were working in Egypt during the Arab Spring in 2011. We were overseeing the marketing department of a pretty big diving company. And, obviously Mubarak had been ousted. There were million-man marches. It was chaos. People were dying. It was a very chaotic situation in the country. And obviously, travel took a huge hit. And I think the travel industry does have these inherent challenges that are inherent to the industry. Travel bans, closures, pandemics now, So I think I learned early on that as we were building Alter Experiences, and as you're building any travel business, you have to be conscious of those inherent challenges and how do you navigate those challenges. If you're a business dependent on international travel, how is that going to work if, flights are canceled for any reason, people can't travel, natural disaster, whatever. And in our experience and what worked for us was that we were so strong in the local market. And in local market, I'm talking San Diego, you got, 3.3 million people just outside, within an hour of us. You've got Orange County, you've got LA, you've got a lot of people. We got a lot of people visiting from those areas that is within driving distance. And the other market that I feel is really neglected up here is Baja, Calexico. That's a huge demographic for us and a huge market, an untapped market. I feel that could really do well if we start putting our heads together as a destination. So, those are all the things that I'm into. As I said, it's not something I ever, if you had asked me when I was a kid, what you want to do, maybe you wanted to be an astronaut, a cop, what have you. Throughout the years, I just found this niche. I held on to it, and it's paid off in many, many ways, not just financially, but also psychologically.
Yeah.
That what I'm trying to do is something that responsible business, sustainable business, you can still be profitable, you can still make good money, you can still be a savvy entrepreneur, and it doesn't have to come at the expense of natural resources or outsourcing jobs to other countries and all this kind of corporate culture that we have here that I think is definitely, again, one of those things that is being perpetuated by technological acceleration.
Yeah, yeah. Sustainable business is. You were saying sustainable business. In my mind, I was thinking like a business that doesn't. It's like paperless and stuff like that. So you mean
Yeah.
that way, and then also not outsourcing stuff and.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about local, trying to be local as much as possible. That's a huge one. Trying to be environmentally responsible. Where are you sourcing your material? So that's a whole nother
Yeah, yeah.
genre. And that's ultimately the goal, zero waste. I mean, I'd like to get there. I'm not just in my business, but in my personal life.
Yep, yep.
And as I said, it's been a transition for us to move away from what we had when we were living in the city to what we have now, and that transition towards minimalism. And we're still, we achieve kind of a level of it, and then the next level of that is like zero waste, hopefully. And that's something I'm aspiring for. I'm done with single-use plastic. I'm done with materialistic culture. I feel like, and it's been so liberating to me, and I feel, as within, so without, right? I found that when I downsized and took that approach, something happened inside me. It was not just it's something I did outside. It was an action I took, and inside of me, I kind of started fragmenting myself.
Totally.
And dropping all of that baggage that I was carrying. And this mountain healed me in a lot of ways. I love it up here. Every day gets better. This mountain not just healed me, but it did something to me. I don't know. Take what you will out of that.
I completely resonate with that too.
I
For
learned
sure.
learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, and again, it's things that before I moved up here, I think there was a point that I felt like I was going completely crazy. I didn't understand. I knew something was wrong. I understood it had a tie-in with modern day industrial, consumer-based materialist society. I just couldn't articulate it. Couldn't put my finger on it. Something's wrong. I think we all understand and know it and feel it, that something is just not wrong. And I'm not, I won't even go as far as saying that. What I will say is that don't try to shove this idea down my throat that this is the most optimal way to live and that this is the best way to live. If people out there want to live materialistic Kim Kardashian lifestyles, do you, man?
Of course, yeah.
I'm all about whatever you want to do and whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
My problem is this culture that, promulgates that message and makes that the aspiration for everybody. My aspirations are, conservation, as I said, responsible, sustainable business, helping out in my community. I have no aspirations for that kind of lifestyle.
Totally.
And I don't think it's a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, I am 100%. I really believe nature heals, and a vision of mine is to help contribute to the shifting of culture using social media and pushing things that direction. Pushing in, of course, in a lovingly way,
Yeah.
but at least help people, notice that nature heals in more ways than just that. My thing is food. We eat
Yeah.
every day. We gotta eat. So practicing that, excuse me, and in the big, high speed life of the city, it's like we live in these little boxes, and the off gassing of the paint on the walls and light pollution. Like, I see the stars every night here, and anyone that lives here can just look up. We don't have that many street lights, and we are forced to eat at home because there's no fast food joints within the next 35 minutes from here. So we're all really forced to be here, and that's been just circumstantially, that's been really healing. And then also, I believe in these principles as well. I really think going back to these places, we could still have really strong Wi-Fi and technology and video and stuff, but I really do feel like I really am on board with nature is healing.
Well, and you have to have that balance, and that's, I think, the most exciting thing about nature is we do have the capability and the technology for every person on the planet to live at that sustainable life. We
Yes.
do have it. We have that technology in place. And I think that's the culture we need to popularize. We need to start moving away from this culture of materialism and consumerism. That to me is, public enemy number one right now. And it's just so crazy to me watching, our issues are so deeply rooted. Our issues, we like to attack them superficially. It's left, right, Republican, Democrat. So many things that detract from what's really going on under the tables and what are the real forces and paradigms and archetypal principles that are moving us forward or backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
I think one of the big ones that is underestimated is technology and the pervasiveness of technology. That is, I have a love-hate relationship with that. I'm ready to live in public. I think we all have to be. We're in an age now, and that's what internet culture brought about, is this age of openness, of transparency. And I think that's pretty awesome. I think it is. And we're at the very baby steps of this thing. I mean, so Facebook has only been around for 10 years. I mean, I still remember when it first came out.
Yeah, me too.
And, MySpace before that, but we were slowly moving in this direction. We were moving from a very compartmentalized culture, top-down hierarchy, conservative, Judeo-Christian, Islamic principles, to this brave new world of, open culture, liberating information, open source.
Yep.
And that's where the clash is happening, and people don't realize that. They deal with things superficially and don't look at these divisions are very, very real. We can no longer ignore them, and we've seen them. We're seeing them now. This country is extremely divided, and if you look at what's happening, you've got very much the rural areas, and then you have places like California where technological acceleration is, it's the center of it.
Yeah.
So it's a big division. It's something that we need to acknowledge, and that's just one element of it, and one that technology is disrupting business so fundamentally right now.
Yeah.
A lot of the lockdowns, and I'm screw the lockdowns. That is not a way to deal with this pandemic. It is not. But it is what it is. But I feel like, in one sense, businesses are blaming the lockdowns, but it's just like, guy, your business was not going to survive either way.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not doing anything to automate. You're not doing anything to attract a new demographic. You're not leveraging social media. You're not, if you're retail, what are you doing in terms of building your online platform?
E-commerce, yeah.
In terms of social media, it's just, guys, it's a matter of generation. Like, the new consumers are shopping online, and they're searching for you online. And I find a lot of business owners so resistant to that, and I'm just like, God, like, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, we were talking about it earlier, like, to bring kids for their first camping experience, they will never forget that. And that's something that, you've created, people who have that connection with your brand, and that will potentially last throughout their lifetime. If you're not doing that, well, you're not thinking 20, 30 years down the line. So that's a big one that I'm starting to see. The economic convulsion we're facing right now, at the cornerstone of that is technological acceleration. Don't blame anything else. You either know how to leverage these technologies, know how to apply them, know to make them work for you, or frankly, just retire. I know that's hard and harsh, and a lot of people aren't going to like to hear that, but do what you want with it. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
And I've been working most of my life. I mean, since I was 15, 16 years old, flipping burgers at Burger King. I've done everything.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I associate with most, as being an entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur in the digital age.
Oh, yeah.
And I consider myself pretty well versed in that area.
Yeah.
A lot more so than people around me that have been in their industry for many, many years. What people aren't realizing is that doesn't matter anymore. We were told, it was this business model of location. Like, all of these traditional principles about business are not working anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that firsthand, and it's sad. I think there's division now. There's a big disparity between, the technocratic elites and the rest of the population. And I do feel that to go from a top-down compartmentalized, hierarchical system to internet culture, I mean, it took me years to wrap my mind around it, to just get my mind to work, to work with that. I see it right now playing out in social media, and I see it a lot with the older generation. They cannot deal with other opinions. It's like, ban them. It's just like, guys, like, let everybody say whatever they want to say. You have the right to scroll. I find it fascinating to hear so many different opinions from the left, from the right. I can disagree with it. But that's the point, is to be open to all those ideas and to be able to navigate 1,000 different opinions. Mm-hmm. That is, what our age is. And I think the successful entrepreneurs, and not just for entrepreneurial, for your own psychological well-being, you have to understand that people have their own ideas. Republicans have their ideas, and who's to say that they're wrong? Democrats have their own ideas, and who's to say that they're wrong? And you know what? I relate with them both. I relate with both sides, and that's another thing that we have these molds everybody wants to put us into, and it's just like, guys, it's not that simple.
Yep.
And that's a very controversial area. We got so much to cover. I don't know if you want to get into that.
No. I mean, I definitely agree with that 100%. And it's controversial. It really is just practical. There's no reason to be one side or the other. I mean, they both have really good points. Even anarchists have great points.
They do.
So
I've coming from a very strong Judeo-Christian tradition where I was told that there was certain knowledge I shouldn't look into, occultism, Satanism, whatever.
Yeah.
But I did. Yeah. I like to look at that kind of information, and I found such higher truths in, books that from their side would be considered heresy.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so unique about our generation. We were really forced to live in public, to live in a world where you are constantly listening to 100 different opinions about yourself, about what you're doing, about how you look, about, everything. And from what I'm seeing just within my own group, and I've got like 800-900 friends, I'm, not anybody too popular.
Yeah.
But just looking at them, it's like, guys, you're going to have a very hard time navigating this new world. You cannot, things are changing by the minute. Technology is, and a lot of times, outdating older processes and models, rendering them obsolete, and people still clinging on to those modes and modalities and mind frames. And it's just like, guys, you're gonna have a really hard time navigating that, and you're sitting there on social media building all this hate and fighting it. And you have to understand that's affecting you psychologically, mentally, health-wise. It's affecting you.
Yeah.
And you have a real problem if you can't look at information unbiasedly and without any emotion. For me, information is information, data is data. You interpret it in whatever, any way you want. And again, it goes right back to these divisions we're having in the country. I don't think we can reconcile them at this point. I think it's been festering for a very, very long time, but I want to believe that there is reconciliating it.
Yeah.
And I said, in a lot of ways, am I conservative? Coming from a Judeo-Christian background, yes, there's a big side of me that is conservative. Mm-hmm. But growing up in San Diego, being around such a diverse bunch of people and so many different cultures, am I liberal? Am I left-leaning? Yeah, I think I am that too.
Yeah,
so again, it's these molds. And I lost a lot of friends over this, specifically this year. I mean, I for the most part, Facebook, it's the thing of, I always tried to, I was very careful with how I was curating content. because again, it mingles in so much with my business. We're really a lifestyle business.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what you're buying into is, kind of me and Chantel as personalities in terms of the activism we do, in terms of the conservation, in terms of our partnership with U.S. Forest Service and the advocacy we do for them. So and I have a lot of people I love here in Julian, from the left, from the right. Again, it's a very diverse community with a lot of leanings in every different direction. But this year really forced me to draw a line in the sand and to say, you know what, to hell with. And I think I drew that line in the sand when the shutdown started.
Yeah.
That for me was, I'd say, a lot of rage built in me.
Yeah.
And I tried so hard to just, you want to toe the middle line, not just for being a good person, for the sake of relationships, I tried to really hard, but those shutdowns for me were, like I said, it was the line in the sand for me.
Yeah. Well, I really agree with my kind of, the way I think it's kind of shifting right now. You're right, about, that's where we're living at, is this completely open, perspective. We have to just accept all of it, and then it'll work itself out. It's kind of weird, if you say something and with your discernment that you feel and you put it online and someone disagrees with it, it's almost like if you saying that will incite something in public, you know what I mean? It won't, it'll work itself out, but we just have to be really open with allowing all of this, and it will clash for sure. I mean, I think it's just bringing all of this to the surface,
Well, it is, and as I said, at the core of this, I believe, is this clash of wiring your mind to be able to navigate this brave new world. And I feel like if you're coming from the very traditional top-down, world which we're coming out of, it's the opposite of what we have here, and that's where you have that generational clash. That's where we're having these ideological clashes. That's one of them. I'm trying to think of just, again, one of these other underlying issues that we're facing. I mean, I think, as I said, that's the biggest one. And if you're familiar with where this is going and technological acceleration, Moore's Law, I've been following this subject for many, many years. And as I said, I'm fascinated by it. I work in it. So internet culture is something that I do feel there will come a point where I will turn into those very people I'm, kind of criticizing now, because there's only so much that I will go, and I think I've already gone pretty far.
Yeah.
One of the things probably that, embedding myself with any sort of device might be a line for me. I'm not sure I could do that, but I don't know. I mean, I might have to for health reasons. You don't really know. You can't really put yourself in these absolute positions anymore. And I think that's the best way to live and navigate today's world, from a community perspective as well as a business perspective. Just be open to it all. Take it all in. You don't have to agree with it. You don't. You just have to hear it out. Let people say whatever they want to say, and I'm a huge advocate for that. People should have the right to believe and say whatever they want to say. And if you're my friend, and if you're in my community, and if you're in my circle, short of violence or acts like that, I'll be behind you. I mean, I have friends from, my mom is Mexican, my dad is Egyptian, and Egypt was very much influenced by Arab culture, so there's that too. And being African, African American, so I'm African American with a little bit of Arab, with a little bit of Mexican, so I've been forced. And my mom was Christian, my dad was Muslim, and so it was just, I think I just grew up understanding that and growing up in San Diego. So you had kind of torn by so many different worlds, but at the same time, I think I reached a point where it made me who I am, and I love Egypt, I love the Middle East, I love Mexico, they're countries that I love just as much as I love San Diego. And being in a place like the Middle East, I think every American should take some time and go live in a third world country and
for sure
immerse themselves, not just live like a tourist, but really immerse themselves to get some perspective of how fortunate and lucky we are to have what we have here, and now to see that slowly being eroded for whatever reasons, and again, it's complex. It's not something we can blame on the left or the right. This has been building for many, many years.
Yeah. Deep rooted, like you said.
And we are in a situation where it's scary in a way to think of where we could potentially be going. There are some very serious grievances that certain minority demographics here in San Diego specifically are dealing with, and they're very, very valid. And a lot of the situation of the native tribes come to mind, but if you think about Mexico too, and there was a time when all of this was Mexico, part of Mexico.
Good point.
And so there is it's so crazy. It's just that's what I've learned is everything is subjective. Stop trying to make it an issue of right or wrong. What's right for me might be wrong for you, and vice versa. And I think that's what we need to start understanding, and that's what's going to help us heal this country. We need to try to put ourselves in the shoes of other people and try to see the world through their eyes. And the more that we can do that, I think the more, versus what we're doing now, because what we're doing now is just bashing each other. And of course, the mainstream media is just completely complicit in it.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I have a huge disdain right now for mainstream media. Not all of it, because there's still networks out there that are trying to get the truth out. But, and especially in the last couple of weeks with all this election controversy, you're seeing it again. And then before with, it's going to be a landslide win for Biden. It's not even up for conversation. And it turned out it wasn't. So they've been consistently wrong. They've been consistently peddling a narrative. And I'm really, really concerned with what they're doing and what's happening in that direction. And we'll see where it all goes. I was hoping to have some closure on election day, or at least within a week or two, but it's looking like this thing is going to drag on.
Yeah. Almost feels, like it's intentional or something.
That's the only way I can describe it, is it's completely intentional.
Yeah, I mean, it seems way too planned out.
And again, what we're seeing on the surface, this left-right paradigm, that's not even the issue. And there's something underlying all that. And that's where we need to get to the bottom of, and I hope people can.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, real quick, just to check up on everything, and we'll be right back. It's overheating or not. Alright, okay, we're back. And had a pretty intense break conversation there. We got more in common than I thought we did. So that's amazing. And where do we start? So our the conversation took me back a bit. So your vision for the future of alter experiences. What is your big, like, if you have one, like 5 years, 10 years from now, like 20 years, like the end goal of all of this?
I envision alter experiences expanding internationally. I envision that we're going to be partnering up with other national parks all across the United States and implementing this model there. I'm envisioning having glamping, outdoor hospitality destinations all over the world in some of the most remote, pristine, and biodiverse areas that the planet has. And above all else, I envision our company to act as a vehicle for change towards responsible travel, responsible business, sustainable business, and also to use the tourism and travel experience as a vehicle for change and potentially global change.
I don't know what that is. Some weird noise. Yeah, that's amazing, man. Do you? And I mean, it's already going international.
Yeah, we are working on the Baja project. As I said, by December we should have that up and going. Moving kind of fast with it, just because I kind of feel that the cat's out of the bag right now. There's at least 2 other operations that opened up in the last 2 years.
Shit.
So they kind of beat me to it. I'm kind of frustrated by that, but hey, they're doing a great job. I've gone and seen them already.
Yeah, yeah.
But and you know, it's always fun to work with other colleagues in an industry as big as this. But yeah, by December, we will be hoping to acquire that property. I've got a great team up here in Mount Laguna that's going to be overseeing what we're doing here. So that's allowing me to expand in that direction. And as I said, it's a natural extension to our business. And from here, it's to San Felipe, it's about a 5-hour drive. And it's a beautiful drive.
Shit.
Yeah.
So that's,
It's four and a half hours.
That's close. I mean, and from San Diego, probably a little bit closer.
Closer to, no, from here, we're closer because we're shooting down through Tecate and Mexicali.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's something I think most Julianites, you know, if you've never been down there, we've got within 4.5 hours a place like that. You need to get down there right away.
Yeah, dude. I'm definitely going to be on that. And when it's kind of cold here, it's still nice there.
Exactly, yeah.
Man, that's amazing.
Nice little winter retreat for people in the backcountry.
Yeah.
And also for our international demographic. And we already have so much demand we haven't even started it yet. And we have dozens of groups ready to come.
Damn.
So I'm just praying that we get this up and going. I'm just obsessing with it. I have a very obsessive personality.
Yep,
especially when it comes to certain things. It's probably not the healthiest thing to have, but it's gotten me this far.
Yeah, man. I mean, you got a lot of stuff done, and there's so much more to come. I'm really excited to see all that. So right now, if we were to go to your Mount Laguna glamping site, what do we expect? What would I expect to experience while I'm there?
Mount Laguna is at 6,000 feet elevation and higher. It's one of the most pristine and beautiful and biodiverse destinations we have in San Diego. And San Diego itself is ranked by the Nature Conservancy as, you know, probably the most biodiverse habitat in all of the United States. So that just kind of tells you how unique it is. I grew up in South Bay, East Lake Bonita area. And that used to be rural people, San Diegans that are familiar with that. That used to be very much backcountry. We've seen a tremendous amount of development and growth in San Diego over the past 20 years. I mean, we are one of the top 10 destinations, consistently ranked among the top 10 destinations worldwide. So the demand for San Diego is just growing exponentially. And sometimes, you know, before we moved up here, we were looking for a place where we could, you know, build a family, find a mountain rural community, and obviously a place where our business model would work. And for it to work, we wanted something very biodiverse. And you have a lot of that here. We've got, you know, the historic town of Julian, you've got Lake Cuyamaca, Mount Laguna is its own beast of a destination. You've got places like Warner Springs is also really nice, Santa Isabel. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot of diversity of activities. You know, you can make a full week out of it and really immerse yourself in the destination and visit places like Jeremy's and experience their farm-to-table food, go to Quechos and experience their Mexican culinary. We've got the Wolf Center. You know, we've got, you know, the mining tours. So those are all part of creating that experience and allowing people to immerse themselves in a destination versus going to a 5-star hotel and sitting in the room all day long in front of the TV. So that's kind of the differences there in terms of like the tourism experiences that we're trying to build.
Totally.
Getting back to just the development in San Diego, I feel like Julian and the backcountry, you know, starting from Descanso on backwards east, that is the last bit of rural open space backcountry territory that we have left in San Diego. And that's terrifying to me. To think that within 20, 30 years, my kids are not going to have the kind of experiences that I'm having here right now. And, you know, naturally, when you're trying to build a community and expand a community and you know, stimulate the economy in a place like the backcountry, doing it the traditional way is very, very hard. We're capped out in terms of a lot of our occupancy occupancy. Like there's not much more this destination can grow in terms of any more buildings, and we don't want that. I don't think anybody wants that. We're capped out, but that does pose an economic challenge as more and more people try to move up here, looking for jobs, looking for economic opportunities. So I'm hoping that we can work together as a community to start finding out of the box ways to grow business sustainably. I think what we've accomplished with the glamping is a right step in that direction. And I think, the state, we have nothing but open land up here, state parks, county parks. Very easy way to invest in some equipment, potentially triple your revenue, bring a new demographic up that wouldn't otherwise be up here. So that's part of the stuff. And there's a lot of moving parts to that. And we've, working this with the U.S. Forest Service, and obviously they're not just handing out these permits. I'm delivering for them, and I have to be consistently delivering for them in terms of what are you doing to educate your customers? What are you doing to attract people that otherwise wouldn't be coming up here? What are you doing to attract younger generation kids? What are you doing in terms of interpretive outreach to your visitors? So it's a model that we've got dialed in. And it's a model that U.S. Forest Service now is, we have a track record, we have a pilot project that we can expand and build on. And I see a lot of sustainable economic growth and opportunity in that direction. When you start thinking about renewable energy, that's another way that we can support economic growth while still being sustainable. Farming and agricultural tourism, that's another thing that we were talking about earlier. That is another direction in which we want to go. So we have to be very forward thinking about how we grow as a community, as an economy, and we have to be more and more looking at unorthodox approaches to business growth and development. And that's really exciting for me. It's kind of like life hacking.
Yeah.
And, I've something that I'm really all about, and that's a whole other subject that we could get into. But yeah, that's the vision that I have, and I'm so proud and excited that the foundation of that was built here in Julian. And there's so much beauty in this community. There's so much talent. There's so much heart. In terms of what we were talking about again, this knowledge of the importance of our dark skies, immersion in forest bathing, what some of our nonprofits are doing, like the Vulcan Mountain Foundation is a perfect example of their land management, progressive land managed strategies, and everything that they've been able to do to protect large areas of the backcountry. Those are the things we need to be focusing on right now, and that's the stuff that I get really excited about. And I don't want to, maybe we can close off with this. I don't want to get, too crazy with it, but I feel a point may come where we will have to fight for this like nothing we've ever fought for before. I'll just leave it at that.
And, for sure.
Something this beautiful and precious and special is something that is worth fighting for. And it's an intellectual fight. It's a fight that's playing out in many different ways. A big way that I see it again is nonprofits like the Vulcan Mountain Foundation buying up land and classifying them as preserves to protect them. And that's something that's really exciting and awesome. And we have this very interesting mix here of our Cleveland National Forest bordering State Park. Where I live, it's the state park right in front of us and Cleveland National Forest right behind us. We're right in the middle of it. So, we have all these different organizations that have the sort of same vision for the destination, different mandates, different missions. But overall, as a destination, I think we're getting really close to tapping into what Julian is. And it's made up of so many different things, but I think a story is going to be told here soon, and that's something really exciting that we're working with the San Diego Backcountry Visitors Bureau and Discover Julian. We've interviewed so many of the old timers up here, so many of the movers and shakers of this destination that have brought it to where it is, and there's a beautiful, amazing story to be told there, and I'm really looking forward to helping bringing that story to life here soon, and conversations like these are where we're going in that direction.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Yes. And I do feel like that, what you said about we're going to have to fight for pretty strongly for preserving this stuff in the near future. Hopefully, we can build some momentum now before that point comes so we can have a little bit less of a fight.
But I think we have built a lot of momentum.
Yes, totally.
We have some
Yeah, you guys are doing awesome.
heavy hitters up here, people that you're not going to want to trifle with, people that are, activists, people that, I mean, it's already happened. I mean, with the Hoskins Ranch is an example of this issue that we've had here. There was the project that basically made the Vulcan Foundation what it was. They stopped a huge development project that was being planned on the Vulcan Mountain Ridgeline. So there's been, a lot of little examples of it. I think also the battle for JCFPD, that's a very controversial subject up here right now. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I think that was another example of a grassroots community of activists coming together for what they believed was the best way moving forward, keeping our Julian fire protection. I mean, when that was going on, we were making the news once a week. And I think that's just a testament to the kind of people that we have up here. And they are a bunch of fighters. They are very hard-headed, stubborn people. And I am too, so...
Yeah.
We'll inevitably clash, but I think deep down inside we all want what's best for... We all moved up here for the same reasons. And people that have been living here for all these years, they understand that this has to be protected. And I think there is this very entrenched old guard up here in Julian, and they're very jealous and protective over the destination and very protective over it. And I mean, for a while there, I was kind of, it upset me because it was kind of restrictive. It was very hard to kind of penetrate that sort of culture in terms of introducing new ideas for tourism development. But over the years, I feel like I'm really starting to have a new appreciation for it. And then you're here, and now you gain that ownership and love for it. And then you start getting real protective about it. And then you start acting that way towards newcomers.
Yeah, totally.
And it's an awesome problem to have. I think it's awesome that we have so many people that love this destination and feel that ownership for it. That's actually probably the best thing you could have in a community. And as things unfold and as 2020 comes to a close and 2021 brings us whatever it brings, I earnestly hope that we can keep it together as a community for the sake of conservation, for the sake of what we have. I've lost some friends, as I said, up here over this year.